This universe is a reflection in the mirror of consciousness. The world that you are perceiving around you is a reflection of your internal states. Today, we will go deep and we will understand the 5 hidden teachings of the ancient text Tripura Rahasya, which is the mystery beyond the Trinity. This text is said to be a dialogue on the nature of reality between Dattatreya and Sri Parashurama, and it is considered as one of the greatest texts on the nature of reality by many spiritual teachers, including Sri Ramana Maharshi. The Adhvaitha channel is about conscious living and conscious creation. Here we explore various ancient scriptures and spiritual teachings from India to understand the nature of reality and to consciously create our lives. Now let us start with the first mystery, which is the universe is a mirror. The text Tripura Rahasya basically tells us that this universe is not absolute. It is not real in the way we perceive it. It is simply a reflection in a mirror, and the name of this mirror is consciousness. And this text tells us, just like how the mirror and the reflection in the mirror cannot be separate from each other, consciousness and this universe cannot be separate from one another. This universe simply is an appearance in consciousness, and it has no independent reality of its own. Here we need to understand that the mirror is an independent reality, whereas the reflection within the mirror is a dependent reality. Whatever happens in the reflection will ultimately not affect the mirror, but the existence of the mirror is absolutely essential for the reflection itself. Just like this, we need to understand that pure consciousness is the fundamental independent reality to this existence. It is this existence itself. And the universe and the world that we can see all around us is simply a projection, it's a reflection within that mirror of consciousness. And hence, we can say that this pure consciousness is God. And when I say God, please don't imagine a form with hands and legs. I'm talking about a pure intelligence which is evident in nature, which is evident in this universe. This universe is intelligent. From a blade of grass to human beings, every aspect of the creation shows intelligence. So intelligence is inherent in creation. This intelligence itself is pure consciousness, and this pure consciousness is God as per Adhvaitha Vedanta. This is the formless God, the intelligence of the universe. To understand dependent and independent realities better, we can also look at the example of a clay and the pot. Clay exists before the pot, clay will exist as the pot, and clay will continue to exist even after the destruction of the pot. Hence, clay is an independent reality, whereas the pot, the form, is a dependent reality. Coming to the mystery 2, here the mystery 2 is about the role of consciousness. Here I will directly read from the text Tripura Rahasya. Verse 52 of this text says, just as a mirror, though dense and impenetrable, contains the image, so also pure consciousness is dense and impenetrable, and yet displays the universe by virtue of its self-sufficiency. Just as the mirror remains unaffected by the passage of different images and yet continues to reflect as clearly as before, so also the one consciousness illumines the waking and the dream states, which can be verified by proper meditation. Verses 38 to 41 say, being within, the universe cannot be different from consciousness. For you know that two things cannot coexist within the same limits. If they do, intermingling is the result. However, the universe maintains its distinctness because it is like a reflection in the mirror of consciousness. As regards the appearance of exterior in the scheme of creation which was traced to the root cause of ignorance, how can manifestation in it be real? Their reality must be associated with the fact of their being of the nature of consciousness, that is the self. It is therefore proper to conclude that the self is alone and single and there is nothing beyond. Here we need to understand that the consciousness is unaffected by the universe. It remains as it is, just like a mirror remains unaffected by the reflection in that mirror. And since this universe is simply a reflection in consciousness, this universe is nothing but consciousness itself. Hence, this consciousness can be called all pervading, eternal, infinite, and limitless. Mystery 3 is about mind and creation. Here we will understand conscious creation and how the universe itself was created. The verse 65 says, O Parashurama, note how daydreams and hallucinations are clearly pictured in the mind even in the absence of any reality behind them. How does it happen? The place of objects is taken up by the peculiar imaginative quality of the mind. When such imagination is deep, it takes shape as creation. Consciousness is pure and unblemished in the absence of imagination. Here the verse is telling us that the consciousness is self-sufficient and it remains unaffected even without creation. The verse 68 then says, so the world is nothing but an image drawn on the screen of consciousness. It differs from a mental picture in its long duration. That is again due to the strength of the will producing the phenomenon. The universe appears practical, material, and perfect because the will determining its creation is perfect and independent, whereas the human conceptions are more or less transitory according to the strength or the weakness of the will behind them. This is a profound statement. The verse here is telling us that the universe exists and it appears to be so permanent, so rigid, and so real because of the will of the creator. So this universe is simply an imagination in the mind of God. It is a reflection in consciousness. But because of the strong will of the creator, this imagination appears to be real and independent. And similarly to this phenomenon, we create our worlds all around us through the power of our minds. So whatever we think, whatever we believe, such a kind of life we live. This is what the modern teachings call the law of attraction. So we are constantly creating our lives through our minds. But the world that we create and the results that we want to create in the world are not so clear, and things do not always happen the way we wish them to happen because of our limitations, because of the lack of our will, because of the lack of consistency, and because of the lack of focus. Here the verse 87 says, imagine a hill within you and also time in a subtle sense. Then contemplate a whole creation in them. They will endure as long as your concentration endures, even to eternity for all practical purposes, if your willpower be strong enough. Therefore, I say that this world is a mere figment of imagination. Now, the fourth mystery is about enlightenment and the elimination of perception. It also says that self-realization is very different from any other type of understanding or realizations. And for this, a pure mind is required. A pure mind which is beyond these three aspects. One, apavada, which is misinterpretation and misunderstanding of the scriptures and the knowledge of Brahman. Second is karma, the memory and vasanas which has created a certain momentum for our lives and which are unconsciously controlling our lives. We must go beyond them. And third is kama, which is desire and the sense of duty which we all have, because of which we are distracted in this world and we don't go beyond this world. Here the text says the mind is simply turned away from other perceptions. The mind is in an indifferent state where there is absence of any kind of perception. Therefore, concentration on a particular item is necessary for the perception of external things. But since consciousness is the self and not apart from the mind, concentration on it is not necessary for its realization. It is enough that all other perceptions, namely thoughts, should be eliminated from the mind and then the self will be realized. So the Yoga Sutras start with this. Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Through yoga, the modifications in the mind or the thoughts within the mind will stop. And because of this, all perceptions will stop. When all perceptions stop, this is the place for realization as per this text and as per many other teachings in India. Now coming to mystery 5, which is the nature of the self and the nature of reality. So to sum it all up, the self is even experienced right now. Even now, me and you are experiencing that infinite self within us. We are experiencing that infinite consciousness within us, but we are not aware of it. We are not recognizing it because of our identification with this body and mind. If only we could stop all perceptions and if we could disidentify ourselves with this body and mind, we will simply realize ourselves for who we are. This is what we need to understand as per the teachings of Tripura Rahasya and as per the teachings of Swami Dattatreya. The second point is everything depends on consciousness or the self. So the self is one with that universal consciousness, and within that universal consciousness, the universe is being reflected or is being projected. And because the universe is a mere reflection in consciousness, everything depends on consciousness and everything is consciousness. And the third point we need to understand through this text is that our minds create our perception of this world. And I also understand it in this way. Our minds, because of the nature of our mind, will experience this world in a certain way. So the way we keep our mind is directly connected to the life which we experience in this world. And because of this, Astavakra says in Astavakra Gita, Yamati sa gati bhavet. However we keep our minds, such a kind of life we live. If we fill garbage in a box, it becomes a dustbin. If we keep jewels there, it becomes a jewelry box. Like this, however we keep our minds, such a life we attract for ourselves. But the ultimate purpose of this text and teachings like this is self-realization. It is understanding that this world is simply a projection, it's an illusion, and through this understanding we must come out of our attachment with this world and realize ourselves for who we are.